Hey guys, it is May 30th, 2023. We're hosts Doc J and JD, and you guys are listening or watching to Full Court Press Podcast. Let's run that intro. Hey guys, you're listening or watching the Full Court Press Podcast. We have just hit a threshold of 88 subscribers. We want to thank you guys so much for helping the channel grow. This has honestly already exceeded our expectations. JD and I really just started this channel because we're a couple of bros who casually love to talk about basketball. And the fact that you guys are showing us this much love, giving us this kind of support, it really goes a long way for us. If you guys have not subscribed, please do so. And thank you so much for the support. JD, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Just living the dream. What about you, Doc?
Good. I really can't complain. I just got some schoolwork done, but outside of that, I mean, who can really complain as a basketball fan when we just witnessed probably one of the best series in the postseason that I've seen within my lifetime?
You know, I thought that maybe Boston and Miami, rather Boston was going to, make history. I thought that they were going to take it, after winning those 3 games and bringing it back to Boston. But Miami it's an incredible team.
They really are. And something I really, really love about the Heat in Miami is they have the continuity of a winning culture that they've just always had. They, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, they have a great coaching staff. Jimmy Butler has been a fantastic leader for that team too. And you're right, going into Game 7 back at Boston, I also thought all the momentum had completely shifted. I was like, I don't know if there's going to be a way that they get it done. I wanted to kind of hold out hope. It's not that I don't love Boston, because I do. I'm just a huge fan of Jimmy Butler. And something else I really just respect is the fact that their team outside of Bam and Jimmy really is composed of a lot of unsung heroes, if you will. They have a lot of undrafted guys, and those guys come with a confidence of knowing that it doesn't matter if they were drafted or not. They're on a team where they understand their role. They understand how they want to play basketball. And at the post conference, actually, something stood out to me that Jimmy said. He was asked a question by a reporter, and the reporter referred to his teammates as role players. And Jimmy's response was, I don't see them as role players. I see them as teammates. Now, I'll tell you what, man. If I was a basketball player, hearing that, I would want to go play with Jimmy Butler in Miami. I think that that's kind of the mentality you have to have when you want to win. And I think that Miami, ever since Jimmy's been there and beforehand, they've been incredibly successful.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting pushed out in the first round. They've made the finals before. They were in the ECF last year with Boston, and it went to 7 games again. So this was just their year. I absolutely loved it. But Boston deserves some credit as well, because that was an incredible comeback that they tried to mount, and they almost got it. I mean, I was listening to ESPN, Fox Sports. A lot of people were saying, well, the narrative was, is Boston going to, make history here? And I was starting to feel it. What about you, man? What do you think?
Well, I think the way that I kind of think about it is that in the surface, you kind of look at Boston, you look at Miami with their injuries, with the players that they have on the court. You just think that Boston is the much better team. And especially they are on paper. They've got Jason Tatum, who I consider to be a top 5 player in the NBA. You got Jaylen Brown, who's a superstar. He made All-NBA as well. I think that they have a great core, great roster. They came in as the 2nd seed. A lot of people predicted them to take it back, make it to either the Eastern Conference Finals or further. And so it was very easy to say that Boston was going to go far. And I mean, they did. They made it, But the interesting thing about Miami is people keep counting them out. They keep thinking, obviously with the 1st and the 8th seed, most people predicted them to lose against Milwaukee Bucks, but they pulled it out, And then they end up winning again, and they end up winning again. And, when I saw them go up 3-0, it was very easy to think, okay, well, Jimmy's the GOAT. They are just absolutely destroying. Joe Mazzulla is getting out-coached very hard. Joe Mazzulla was basically, I think Eric Spoelstra made Joe Mazzulla look like he should be grading, 5th graders. He was getting destroyed out there. And then Boston, he started to come back. They started to play pretty well. And the thing, though, is, in that 7-game series, Game 7, it was interesting to think, like, everybody's thinking, okay, Boston's going to take this. But, in a way, we were all being lazy. We're forgetting that Boston, although they have on paper this incredible squad, Miami has Eric Spoelstra. And he was out coaching Joe Mazzulla so hard. And Jimmy Butler, has that confidence. He has, that mentality that he's going to win. He's going to do everything, to win. And I think that you posted something, Doc, about how he already, the Miami, he already had tickets to go to Denver right after the game. They were planning on winning. Yeah. And winning, they did. They destroyed. And just, to reiterate, I feel like a lot of people just kind of got lazy because just looking at it on paper, Boston has the better team. They have less injuries than Miami did. But Miami, they have the culture. They have the coaching. And that's what ended up winning.
I agree. I also, a caveat to that, I really think that this Game 7, I think that more than the Celtics as a team as a whole is to blame, because I really don't believe they are. I think that Joe Mazzulla should be taking more of that blame for this loss. And the reason I say that is because in this Game 7, too, especially from what I noticed, they became very offensively incapable of dealing with basic zone, the 2-3, the 3-2 zone. And everyone touts Joe to be like this offensive mastermind. And I'm not trying to discredit him. I mean, he's a coach in the NBA and I'm a guy, making a podcast. But I think that he could have made a lot more adjustments. I think there could have been a lot more ball screening, trying to get your ball facilitator to penetrate the 3-2 by the foul line to get open kickouts. I think they could have tried to attack the baseline more for some easy layups or other kickouts, but no one was really collapsing the zone the way they needed to get the offensive production rolling. Another piece of that puzzle, in my opinion, is I don't think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown can really work in tandem. Now, before the internet gets crazy on us, I'm not saying they're not incredible players. I personally think they're the best two wings in the league, without question. But they both kind of play the same position. And when I think of guys who can work in tandem, I think of guys like LeBron James and AD. I think of Steph and Klay Thompson. I think of Jamal Murray and Jokic. Specifically those two as well, because when you run a pick and roll with Jamal and Jokic, you can usually get some sort of mismatch somewhere from the defense. When you're Tatum and Brown, if you run a pick and roll, the defense is just going to switch on you. So, and once again, I'm not saying that I don't think that they are incredible. They absolutely are. What I would like to see for Boston would have to be an uptick in possessions for Marcus Smart. I think that he can be a good ball facilitator. I think that he would be if he was given more of that role and opportunity. But I think that that's what this team kind of needs. I think they need some sort of ball facilitator, a floor general who's going to orchestrate ball movement for these two incredible wings and get them some really good looks. And then if you work that more in tandem with, all right, in clutch times, we're going to get the ball to Tatum because we know he's going to go downhill. He's going to do his thing. Every now, when you need him to, you can let Jaylen Brown take over a game. Absolutely. But who really facilitates ball movement on that team? Do you know what I mean?
I can see what you're saying, but I can't really disregard the results that they've been getting. Going to the Eastern Conference Finals, going to the finals the year before, I think they can make it work, and I think that they can win it. I just think that, I think it is on coaching a lot. I also think that the two of them didn't play well at all, these final games. I think that they both had over 20 turnovers. I think it was something crazy. Like, I think that
Right.
Tatum had something around 25. Brown had something like 26. And so they just kept turning the ball over. I do think these two are incredible talents, and I do think that they can find a way to work together, to really be the number one, the number two option. And, again, on paper, looking at the Celtics and the squad that they have, I think if they run it back and, maybe get some more interior development, maybe another big man, because Al Horford is getting older, things like that. I think they can, go as far as the finals again. I think that they really could work it out. But, what are you implying here, Doc? What do you think they should do?
All I'm saying is during the Boston offseason, I would start taking a look at a few different things. I think it would be incredibly irresponsible to not pay Jaylen or Jason Tatum. I know that both of them coming up are going to be eligible for the Supermax contract, which for Tatum is $315 million over 5 years, which is an incredible amount of money. And Jaylen Brown can get a 5-year up to $295. We're talking over $6 million you're going to pour into your number one and number two options. And
is it 600?
It's over $600 million collectively for both contracts for that 5-year period, which is that'll make them the highest paid players in the NBA, I'm pretty sure. And they both deserve that. What I'm saying is I think it's time that Boston starts to retool a little bit to maximize their efficiency. I thought their defense at times was great. I know that Boston is kind of searching for their identity. They had to kind of reinvent themselves through the postseason, and then, obviously they weren't able to make it. But you're right in terms of their success. They've gone to the ECF, 5 times in the past 7 years with 1 finals appearance. They're definitely knocking at the door. I think they just have to start retooling a couple things to really maximize these two dynamic wing players. With that said, what do you think of the narrative that's going on about trying to trade Jaylen Brown? That's all I heard today on the news.
Yeah. I think it's generating a lot of buzz, and it even generated buzz before the playoffs started because, people were saying that he was unhappy there. There have been reports saying things such as, Jaylen Brown is saying he can't find a business. He can't start a business in Boston. There are other things that he's just been, a little weird about, that he's saying that the fan base has been toxic. We can look those up as well. There's been reports of him, seemingly unhappy in Boston.
Yeah,
now,
I know what you're talking about too.
Yeah,
it's a New York Times report.
I think that it hinged on the fact of whether or not he could get all NBA, which he did, and he's going to, be eligible for this Supermax contract. And so I personally believe that if he was not all NBA this year, he'd be walking. He'd be finding a new spot, maybe trying to develop and be a number one option instead of having to be behind Tatum or something like that. But even with that, all of these trade rumors, I don't think Boston's going to be trading him. I think that, with the success that they have seen with these two guys, generating, 25 to 30 points, and they can do it on any given night, I think that you have to, go all in on these guys, even despite how expensive they are. And, it might be interesting to kind of look at the CB rules that are coming out.
I was about to say,
what might happen. Like
CBA rules here.
Yep. Are you
Yeah,
going to even
that
be
look.
able to be eligible to pick up really decent contracts, with how expensive these guys are? Maybe we could do another episode about that later. But in my opinion, I don't really think that they're going to be shopping Jaylen Brown. I don't think Brown is going to be leaving. What do you think, Doc?
I mean, I just don't know what, like, as a fan base, as you and I are as well, we're fanatics ourselves. We love the game. I think a lot of us tend to overreact in situations like this, and I think it would be incredibly irresponsible of the Celtics to try to shop Jaylen Brown. I just like, what do you think you're getting back for him that's going to push you over the top? Do you know what I mean? Like, who is this magical player you're going to get who is going to, one, understand that the team is Jason Tatum's team and be okay with his second role, being his sidekick essentially? You have to worry about continuity. You have to worry about him learning Missoula's system. I just don't know who this player is who's out there. And even if that player is out there, is he even available for Jaylen Brown? I think Jaylen Brown is easily a top 5 shooting guard in the league. Like, who are you getting that's going to give you better offensive and defensive production from the guy that you drafted, who you have had his entire career? Needless to say, I know that the rumor mill is the rumor mill. And if I was Jaylen Brown, I'd be kind of upset about it. I'd be frustrated that I was always the guy who was being looked at as the scapegoat for this team, especially when I don't think he's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it really boils down to is that he is, a top-end talent. Potentially, there's always guys who are incredible. Maybe, in order to make a trade, they find something juicy. I am maybe the type of person, although I do think there are a few untouchables, I think that the number 2 options generally, may appear untouchable unless offered something incredible. So who knows? I mean, I think a lot of people would want Jaylen Brown and would be willing to give top-end talent to receive him. Just off the top of my head, maybe you send him to Chicago, you get Levine and DeRozan or something, or I don't know if they'd be willing to do something like that. Probably not. But, you start thinking about it, you start having these thought processes. Well, maybe, if somebody's willing to give up something, I wouldn't personally do like a ton of draft capital or anything like that. They want to win right now. So if they were wanting to switch it up, they would probably have to do something like, we need somebody incredible. We need another superstar, or we need multiple stars, in a package deal.
Yeah, some sort of like first team all NBA player, and I like what you said. I want to piggyback off that. I just don't think you're getting that for Jaylen, and that doesn't say Jaylen's not amazing. I just don't think that players of that caliber are going to be available for Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
So, JD, let's swing back and backpedal a little bit. What did you think about all the claims that were coming up about potential rigging of the postseason?
This has been an interesting one for me, and I think that we're probably going to have a couple different takes regarding this as well.
Right.
I've been looking into it, and, we're going to be throwing our tinfoil hat on today,
Absolutely.
because it seems a little bit conspiratorial. But when you really look into it, it's interesting. So there have been some reports, as well as, things that have been going viral, if a lot of people don't know. One of which was a pretty popular viral clip of Jimmy Butler scoring a basket, and then, the ref looking a little upset. And I got it here for you. I'll play it right now.
Jason Tatum tonight. I mean, those final 3 minutes, just a handful of offensive possessions for him in that last quarter, forced him into 3 turnovers. What was the strategy collectively?
So, I mean, you can kind of see a little bit, he's visibly upset. We'll go try and watch that one more time. Like, he seems a little upset. I mean, one could argue that maybe he was just running back from the play, but, it went viral for a reason, and something like that is pretty interesting. Another thing that we saw was that Uber potentially leaked, something showing that maybe the Boston Celtics were supposed to win this series. And I got that here for you. We uploaded it on the channel, but for those who didn't see, got it right here pulled up, and it just shows, some Uber routes, basically showing that, for game 2, the Denver Nuggets were supposed to be playing against the Boston Celtics. Right. It's something interesting. A lot of these things could potentially be discounted. With this one, I assume that Uber is a very good, reputable company. And in that fashion, they're probably going to be preparing a lot for any potential outcome. They probably have the same thing, but, this one maybe got leaked. And so, it's something to really look at. Now, I know that a lot of these things could potentially be debunked. Even one more that a lot of people were talking about was in game 6, when 0.02 seconds left, he was able to, kind of put it in. It was 0.2 rather. He was able, Derek White was able to put it in to, finish the game. And a lot of people were upset because it looked like Jimmy Butler, with 3 seconds left, got fouled at, 2.1. And then if you actually go back and watch the tape, he was fouled at around 2.7, 2.8 seconds. But the referees gave him 3 seconds, they gave Boston 3 seconds to put up a basket, and if you take away, maybe 0.2 seconds,
0.2 seconds
doesn't count.
That basket's over.
But here's what I want to really get at. I personally don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility, because have we seen this before? As NBA fans, everybody who's watching, we have said one time or another, okay, this seems rigged. These refs are playing terribly. We've all have thought that at one point.
Every fan has that.
And it does happen in other sports too. I agree. But it does not happen near as often. If you throw a strike, they're not going to be calling a ball in baseball. If you throw a touchdown, it's much different in the NBA. It's like, it looks like they favor superstars. It looks like they're doing things a certain way. And, for those of you at home that are watching this, I think something very interesting to consider, and maybe you don't know this guy. For those of you that don't know this guy, Tim Donaghy was an NBA ref about 20 or so years ago, and he was caught betting on the games. Now, he was found out in the 06-07 season, and it came out that he was betting on over 45 games of the season with the Mafia. And if you go back and watch those games, and I find this very interesting. If you go back and watch those games, it's very hard to tell that he's rigging it, although it has come out that he has rigged those certain games. So we know the games that he was rigging, that he was betting on, but it's kind of hard to tell. He was obviously very good. And I think the biggest point to consider about Tim Donaghy 20 years back was that there are still referees in the league that were 20 years back that are still referees now. And they have, phone calls. They have a list of his calls on file. He made 150 calls to the Mafia. He made 11 calls to other different refs during the season. And then he made 134 calls to Scott Foster. And who is Scott Foster? He's a guy who is in the league right now, and he is officiating the playoffs. He officiated both the Miami and Boston series. He officiated the Lakers series as well with Nuggets. And so is it going to be so blatant where you're like, okay, this is very obviously rigged, or is this guy going to be really good? Is it weird that Tim Donaghy called him 134 times and called the other refs only a few times? Could he be potentially evolved? I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to be thinking stuff like this. And with the other things that are coming, to fruition, like potentially this Uber thing that was going on, maybe adding a few seconds, for them to get a shot off. It's not going to be something where it's just like blatantly so obvious. Yep.
Yeah, and it's going to be subtle. Everything is subtle. And that's where the speculation takes place. And I agree with you. And just for our fans who are once again listening, I want to reiterate, because I know how our comment sections can be sometimes, we're not coming out and saying the NBA is rigged and here's all the proof. We are speculating based off of the minor evidence that we have seen, and we are really on the same page in terms of believing there could be some merit to that. And
yeah,
I totally
want to
agree.
hear your take on this, because it's like, if they're rigging it, if they're doing bets, they're obviously going to be very good at it, and it's going to be hard to find.
Right, exactly. If you are trying to rig something as a referee, obviously you're not going to be like blatantly obvious or foolish enough to get yourself in trouble and potentially land some jail time. But something that I do find very fascinating is accountability in the NBA as a referee really is non-existent. Like, let's think about all the terrible calls that have gone on even this season. Well, it was actually Boston and LA where LeBron James got like hammered the last few seconds of a game they were playing, and completely just got hit by, I think, Jason Tatum. You can see it in the replay. And what happened with that? Well, first, LeBron threw like the most epic temper tantrum I've ever seen. It was incredible. In fact, I think there was a meme where they said the different stages of grief, and then they just used the different photos of LeBron, which is so funny. He was so upset, but I would be too. I get it. But what happened from that? The ref's official Twitter post was like, "Oh yeah, sorry, we made a mistake." Like, there's no accountability whatsoever. Like, and I think that could ultimately lead to a lot of these things taking place. It obviously has in the past before. When you catch a referee and put him in jail who has ties to the mafia, and you know that he's rigging games.
And he says referees are involved. He said other referees were involved.
Yeah. This guy was a stool pigeon. He's like, it's not just me. We blew the whistle on everybody. To believe that was the only instance of that ever happening in the NBA, I think would be foolish. I think that this stuff still goes on. I think it's extremely subtle and hush-hush. I can definitely see it happening. Really? I really can. Oh, yeah, I can. And I'm not saying that it's happening, but I would not be shocked. And if I was Adam Silver, I would be doing a lot of investigations. And I would be definitely tightening my leash on the accountability of my referees.
Well, Doc, I think something to consider as well is that I think this claim loses a little bit of credence just to the fact that Miami ended up winning the series, and that we're speculating that Boston was potentially supposed to win the series. But even given that, like we have been mentioning before, they're not just going to like stop Jimmy Butler from scoring baskets or the rest of the team, or Joe Mazzulla getting out coached. It's not like they can be so obvious about it. But I think that, they look at point differentials, they see, okay, we're going to bet that they're going to win by 10. And if this team is up by 10, they might throw in a few calls, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Just something to think about.
All right. With that said, too, Jimmy Butler, guy's amazing. And you're right. You really can't stop Jimmy Butler, can you? You can try to slow him down, but you can't stop him. And that makes me wonder, now that Miami is packing their bags and they're probably in Denver right now. In fact, we know they are because they bought tickets. What was that, last night? They're probably chilling already. What is your take on who's going to be the NBA champion of this year? Do you think it's going to be Miami? Do you think it's going to be?
We might differ on this one. So I personally think, and you got to let me cook here, I personally think that Miami is going to win.
Okay.
Now, here's why I think they're going to win. I think that we keep discounting Miami over and over. We thought they were going to lose against the Bucks. We thought that they were going to lose against, they played the Knicks. Is that right?
Yep.
We thought they were going to lose against the Knicks, and we for sure thought they were going to lose against the Celtics. And now we think they're going to lose against Denver. I mean, Denver is just an absolute power squad. They built through the draft. They got Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and they made a great trade with Aaron Gordon. They got KCP, and they have a great squad. And on paper, Denver should win. They even have a great coach. But I just think that Miami has an incredible coach as well. They have an incredible culture. And, despite players being injured, Tyler Hero is coming back, or reported to be coming back.
Yeah.
He's a great guy who averaged 20 points in the season. I think that, they're showing that, with will, with motivation, with a guy like Jimmy Butler, who's incredible culturally, that they can really pull something off. And I could see Miami winning it. What do you think, Doc?
Fair play. You're right. We do disagree. I think that Denver, as much as I love Miami, and you're right, we've been just counting them out since the postseason started.
I want to stop counting them out.
Hey, there you go. You got your pick. As for me, I just don't think there's any way that Miami is able to beat Denver. Not at all. I think Denver is going to absolutely crush them within 5 games. The reason I believe that is because Nikola Jokic, the Joker, is the best player in the world right now. He's the best player in the NBA. And I don't think Bam Adebayo has enough talent defensively to stop him. I don't think anyone has enough talent defensively to stop the Joker. And with that said, too, you can take guys like Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., and you can throw these guys defensively all over Jimmy Butler, and you might not be able to stop him, but you can slow him down. Plus, I think there's some lagging injuries from this incredible war that Miami had with Boston. But I definitely see I see Denver just kind of picking the bones. And that's kind of how I felt looking at Game 6 and Game 7. I mean, Jason Tatum looked hurt. Jimmy Butler doesn't look. Everyone looks tired, exhausted, and just beat up. And that's the game of basketball. But I think that Jamal Murray is fresh. I mean, Denver has had literally 10 days off, just chilling. And they have big enough forwards who are defensively capable of slowing Jimmy down. And I don't think anyone on Miami can stop Jamal Murray or Jokic. I don't think they can at all. With that said, I do want to give Miami credit, but I absolutely think Denver is going to roll them over, especially with the altitude. There are so many different factors going into this series. Location, it favors Denver. Well, in Denver,
home
in
court advantage.
Yeah, and it also favors Denver in Miami, where they're at sea level. Because what happens when you go from high altitude, what you're used to, when you go to sea level? Dude, your energy jumps through the roof. I remember, just a quick story here, when I was in basic training, I went to Oklahoma at Fort Seal, and I ran my 2-mile in 2 minutes less time than I did while I was training up in Utah. And the elevation here in Utah is no joke, but it's not the same as in Denver. And so all of these like athletically mastered guys they're not going to be sweating too much in terms of like the Nuggets. Miami is going to be playing normal. They're going to be sucking in Denver because of the altitude, and then the Nuggets are going to be playing real quick, real fast, and free flowing when they go to Miami. So both of those places favor the Nuggets. The break favors the Nuggets. I mean, having the best player in the world favors the Nuggets, and I don't think there's any way Miami can pull this one off.
I mean, I can definitely see your point. I thought the same thing about Boston, though, and I thought the same thing about Miami versus Milwaukee. So we'll just have to see.
That's true. We will have to see. All right, let's talk about the offseason a little bit, because I kind of want to look at Portland Trailblazers. The more I've been looking at Portland, the more I've been thinking these guys are really stuck between a rock and a hard place. You have probably the most loyal homegrown hero, well, not homegrown, but probably one of the most loyal basketball players, easy of this generation, in Damian Lillard. You got the number 3 pick, and you're shopping Anthony Simons in that pick to try to get some sort of all-NBA talent to bring to Portland to help Dame win now. My question that I'm posing, though, is that package going to be enough? What I have seen per The Athletic is the Nets aren't interested in playing ball, so Mikal Bridges is off the table.
Why would they do that? Mikal Bridges for the 3rd pick?
And Anthony Simons, yeah.
That's
what's being shopped.
Yeah, I don't think so. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I would ask for more as well, because when you look at the front office of Portland, they have been very vocal about how they're trying to get win now talent to help Dame. So why wouldn't you try to squeeze them for more assets when you have the opportunity? You know, I've seen links to them trying to pick up DeAndre Ayton.
DeAndre?
Yes. Pick up Ayton. But I don't think Ayton is going to be enough he'll make them competitive, but that's not going to be enough either, you know? So I just don't see the guy out there who is going to help push them over the edge. Now, we proposed DeMar DeRozan trade, a 3-way trade with the Utah Jazz and the Portland Trailblazers that I thought was a win-win for everyone. I think having DeMar in the photo, like in the picture for Portland, does make you a lot more competitive. You're definitely going to be gunning for it, that's for sure. But what I'm wondering is, if you're Portland's front office, do you just take the number 3 pick and draft Scoot Henderson and then put Dame up, or do you try to continue to chop this pick and chop Anthony Simons to see what you can get? Personally, if I'm being honest, I would probably trade Damian Lillard. And the reason is because you have guys like Anthony Simons, you have Shaedon Sharpe, who's going to develop into a very elite talent at one point. And if you get Scoot Henderson, you have a franchise point guard again, who one day is going to be an all-NBA talent. Plus, think about the assets that you could milk for Damian Lillard. What do you think?
I'm in the same boat here. I think, as unfortunate as it is, and Portland has even mentioned that they're willing to shop the pick, that they want to try and win now. The GM has said it, the owners, well, they want Damian Lillard to succeed. They want to try and win it all. But I think it would be tough, if you're asking the number 3 pick for Mikal Bridges, or like the number 3 pick in Simons for Mikal Bridges. I personally, like we were mentioning, I wouldn't do it. I think Mikal Bridges is like potentially a future superstar. He's averaging 26, 27 since he gets traded to Brooklyn. It's just like, why would you trade a guy who is incredible, who you basically know will be incredible for the next like 5-7 years, for Scoot Henderson, who I think will be good, but there's a risk, the guy hasn't even set foot and played in the NBA yet. You can't just like assume he's going to be the best talent ever, who's going to be better. It's going to take him like 5 to 6 years before he's really a top guy. This is my opinion. I think he'll be good, right? But I think it'll take, like 4 or 5 years for him to be like elite, maybe a top 5 point guard in the NBA. And so it's tough for me to really see the trade option where they're landing somebody who's an elite player. Like I saw stuff like, okay, well, maybe they trade the number 3 pick to the Jazz and we give them Lauri Markkanen. But it's just like, why on earth would you do that? Lauri Markkanen is potentially an all-NBA guy. For the next like 3 to 5 years. He's going to be in contention for all NBA. He's going to be a guy who will be averaging something like 25 to 28 points per game, who is good. For somebody like Scoot Henderson, who I do think will be good again, but I don't think is like, okay, do you know for a fact that this guy will be an all-NBA player? We don't, because he hasn't played yet. So it's just like, it's tough. So I think you have to try and trade Dame and just do the full rebuild. If you're able to get Scoot, which we don't even know he's going to be going there, maybe it's Brandon Miller.
Right.
And so that's something else to consider as well. But it's just like, I think Brandon Miller will be good. I think Shaedon Sharpe is a great piece. I even think Anthony Simons is still good with a rebuild. He's up and coming talent. He's great. And so
Anthony
it's just like,
Simons,
you go all in, I think, with that.
He's really underrated for the offensive production at the shooting guard spot that he delivers. He's like 6'3". He's like 21 or 22. He came off a season where he's averaging over 20 points a game. Anthony Simons is legit. Like, he really is. And I agree. I don't see, as a Portland front office, you want to be so loyal to the guy who's been loyal to you and like it would just be poetic justice being able to get him a piece that helps him win. I would love to see that. I love Portland. I love the city. I love the people. I love Dame Lillard. I love that he reps that place and he's ride or die with them. The only thing I don't like about Portland is the front office of the Trailblazers. I think that they are botchy. They have botched almost every opportunity to make a title run with him. They never should have let LaMarcus Aldridge go. They traded CJ McCollum. Like, I love Dame. I love his love for that city. And like I said, I'm frustrated with their front office. And I wouldn't be surprised if their front office did something else incredibly irresponsible, because that seems to be the status quo for them. Sorry, Portland. You guys know it's true. Okay? You guys know it's true. You shouldn't have let Aldridge go. What were you guys doing? I mean, you shouldn't have let CJ McCollum go either. So I would
Did they get Jeremy Grant in that trade?
No, I don't think so. Another point, too, speaking of Jeremy, it doesn't seem like he really wants to stay there either. They have enough cap space to where they offered him what he was eligible for, the max contract of 4 years, $112 million, and he turned it down. It's $28 million a year. So, first of all, if Jeremy Grant thinks he's getting more than that, he's out of his mind. Sorry, bud. You just are. You're not getting more than $28 million. That's insane. That's tons of money. You should be very happy with that. But number two, why would you turn that down unless you didn't want to continue playing there? That says a lot to me as well. And I don't think that's on Damian Lillard. I think Dame sets a great culture there. I think the front office is botched. And I could see them trying to trade Dame, honestly, because I don't think that the third pick in Anthony Simons is going to get them the piece they're looking for.
Yeah.
Here's an idea.
I couldn't agree more.
Here's an idea. Would you trade Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, the third pick in the draft, and a 2027 for Jaylen Brown?
If I were Boston?
Yeah.
No. Why would Boston do that? Boston's trying to win right now. Boston keeps going to the Eastern Conference Finals every year. It's just like that would imply that they're potentially trying to do a rebuild. Shaedon Sharpe is super young. When he came in, he was a rookie this year, and he was very young as a rookie, you know. But they chose to do upside. You know, somebody like maybe in comparison for this year's draft, you know, the 2023 draft, somebody like G.G. Jackson, somebody who's incredibly young but shows a lot of upside. I think Shaedon Sharpe kind of fits that bill, and I think he's good, but I think he's going to take 3 or 4 years to be elite as well. I just don't think Boston would be willing to do something like that.
Right. I mean, the only reason I ask and speculate is because of the narrative being pushed that, do you have to break up Tatum and Brown for this team to be successful? And we already kind of covered that. I was just kind of pitching that your way. I mean, if you're Portland, you still pick up the phone and call them and see. I think if you put Jaylen Brown next to Damian Lillard, whew.
I think if you were Portland, you're probably calling every NBA team right now trying to figure out something for Dame. But I think what it's going to boil down to, Doc, is that they're saying that they're trying to do something, and I think they are, but I don't think there's really going to be any results. They're probably going to end up talking with Dame and be like, look, we tried to get somebody. Nobody's really willing to give us an elite option. Would you like to be moved somewhere? And then he's probably going to be like, yep, I don't want to be on a rebuild. He's already been reported to say he doesn't want to be on a rebuild
several times.
And so he'll probably be moved somewhere.
Let me throw one more trade idea your way.
Okay.
Anthony Simons and the number 3 pick for Karl Anthony Towns. What do you think?
You know, I think that Minnesota would want this. I think that Minnesota is wanting to do a rebuild, kind of, in a sense. You know, they want to win. This last year, they went all in on Rudy Gobert, but it kind of failed. So I think they're going to be wanting to trade Cat. And it does do a decent switch up with Portland. I'm not a big fan of Cat. And so if I am Portland personally, I'm a little bit hesitant because I just don't think Cat really has a great mentality. There have been a lot of reports. Jimmy Butler, when he was with Kat has mentioned that he just like doesn't really care too much. There's been other reports. I know that in a post-game interview, even Mike Conley has come out and said, after losing this year, they were saying, we just got to stop playing video games and realize this is our job. We have to really try. And even Kat chimes in off the side. He says, "What was that, Mike?" And then Mike's like, "Oh, nothing," type of thing. It was kind of interesting. You can find that on YouTube.
There's a lot of turmoil there.
There's turmoil with Kat. Is he like a great talent? Yeah, for sure. And so maybe Portland does do this. If I'm a Portland fan, I don't know if I'd be too happy with it, because I think that Anthony Simons is a great future guard, and the number 3 pick could yield something incredible. But if you are trying to win now, maybe Dame and Cat would be a sick combo, and maybe that would make Jeremy Grant want to stay.
Yeah, last one. And this is all contingent to like both of these trades. I mean, if you have to find a way to re-sign Jeremy Grant. You have to find a way to keep this guy. What about this one though? Simons, the number 3, and a 2025 for Brandon Ingram. What do you think?
I like Ingram. If I'm Portland, I am wanting to do this because he's great, and he's not like he's like in his 30s. He's still got a lot of upside, a lot of potential. Great shooter. And, when Zion went out, he was leading the team and he was incredible still. If I'm the Pelicans, this could be a good trade option. If I'm the Pelicans, I'm looking at, potentially the future. I'm a little scared about Zion. Zion has been mentioning, he's like, I have to wait until, I'm Zion again, and he's not willing to get on the court until he's mentally ready, This could be a Markelle Fultz thing all over again with him. And so
incredibly alarming.
Maybe what you want to do with the Pelicans is like, okay, well, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the fact that Zion doesn't play a lot ever, and that we are mediocre and we're not going to get any better unless we do some moves. And so that could definitely switch things up. You are trading a guy who's really good, who's potentially one of the best number 2 options, a really good number 1 option, and you're just taking a swing for the fences on who you're going to get at 3. If that guy's going to be an all-NBA player, a star, Anthony Simons is good. He could be a potential star. So it's something to consider. I don't know. What do you think about it, Doc?
I'd do it for both Portland and the Pelicans. And the reason why is because I agree. I think that you don't know the direction that Zion is going to be headed in. You have to get him with a real sports psychologist to get this guy's mind right, to get him confident enough to be Zion, whoever that is, back on the court. You have some good veteran pieces already. You have some gritty defenders. You have Jose Alvarado. Yeah, Jose Alvarado, Grand Theft Alvarado, baby. You have CJ McCollum, who understands how to be a good veteran on the court and off the court. He's a great locker room presence. You'd have a chance to draft Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson. I think both of those guys at their peaks will be superstars. I believe this draft coming up is the deepest one there is. And I would just start looking at ways to improve around that. Like you get Anthony Simons back, who is an incredible 2 guard. You can even move, if you want to, you can move CJ to the 1. You can have Anthony at the 2. You're going to have to fill the 3 spot, but maybe you draft Brandon Miller and that's where you put him, and then you got to find a way to get Zion's mind right. But yeah, I don't know what you do with that. They're going to have a lot of questions to answer. And so is Zion coming up here, because if he can't stay on the court, they're going to have bigger problems than just trading Brandon Ingram.
I think they'd be worse. I think the Pelicans would be worse short term, but maybe better long term.
I agree. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. JD, you got anything else you want to cover today?
No. I thought that was awesome.
That's a good one. They're always good, but that one was especially good. I like throwing you those curveballs too. Just some fun little trade ideas. We're not reporting that, guys. We're just
reported on ESPN. Just kidding.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Full Court Press podcast. We are your hosts, Doc J and JD. We will see you guys next time. Keep it real.